An in-depth examination of the lack of diversity in the Korean entertainment industry, the Korean societal view of skin color, along with how to implement inclusivity in the Korean entertainment industry. Globalization and race have an interrelated relationship, both indirectly and directly affecting one another. The benefits of globalization have included the increase of international trade and travel, along with the representation of different cultures in music, dance, and fashion around the world. Unfortunately, it is not uncommon for non Koreans to have their cultures and traditions appropriated, to be underrepresented in the media, or to be discriminated against due to their skin colors, all of which can be negatively exacerbated with the influx of globalization and immigration. The inclusion of foreigners in the industry of K-pop is a topic that is important to discuss, as understanding the societal perceptions in different cultures is imperative in considering how these cultures aim to provide inclusion and grow with the rapid rates of globalization. In 2013, 4.9% of newborns in Korea have been multiracial, therefore enforcing the fact that demographics in Korea have been quickly changing. Today we'll analyze the lack of foreigners in the Korean entertainment industry with its association to homogeneity in Asia, discrimination of non-Koreans in Korea, and the politics behind accepting skin color. Along with this, the appropriation of the African American culture with its influence in the K-pop industry will be explored, with the next steps required to dismantle racial barriers and what has been done so far in the entertainment industry. The Korean wave has become a transnational phenomenon, where not only are its consumers those of the Korean culture, they have now come to appeal to audiences worldwide. The popularity of the Korean wave has come to be actively beneficial in terms of gaining economic and diplomatic power with the ever-growing consumption, although it was not always accepted within Asia. Regulations were made from neighboring countries such as China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, Vietnam, as well as Mongolia to halt the progression of the Korean wave, as it was believed that the phenomenon was destroying the cultural industry of these regions due to its so-called similarity to Western capitalism. Racial homogeneity has been a cause for concern and has originated from ethnic superiority, which is an evident connection as to why progression for diversity has been so limited in the Korean entertainment industry. The constant need for homogeneity and the ideology of pure blood nationalism enforce the outlook of superiority rather than naturalization, place of birth, or acculturation. Currently, the concept of nouveau riche racism explains how the economic improvements in Korea, due to the production systems that have exploited foreigners, gives Koreans a sense of superiority to discriminate against non-Koreans economically and beyond. Multiculturalism became accepted in the 1990s. The late acceptance has promoted reluctancy to admit racial criticism towards non-Koreans while choosing to be discriminatory. This is shown in the K-pop industry as mimicry such as blackface of African Americans. The rise of Korea's economy and technological advances has enforced ethnocentrism and discrimination with blackface on internet sites such as YouTube by K-pop stars. The idea of homogeneity has made it difficult for Koreans to understand multiculturalism the same way as others, where if a racial incident of a non-Korean was presented in the media, it may be ignored or condemned by the Korean residents. Furthermore, certain K-pop celebrities implement derogatory jokes to boost viewings, and Korean media will not advertise reports on hate crimes but will be happy to identify with a foreigner demonstrating an exemplary achievement. With this, the attitudes and common use of these racist expressions are nothing out of the ordinary and express the continuous culture of discrimination located in Korean societies, which is emphasized through the experiences of non-Korean residents. The acceptance of skin color is well known in the Korean culture, given that South Korea has been noted as a country containing a single ethnicity. It is argued that Korean skin color is one of the most important characteristics applied to racial categorization and identification of a true Korean individual, hence the term Koreanness. Not only is the skin color of the Korean individual used in determining one's Koreanness, it provides privileges for those closer to having this Korean skin color. The term Koreanness is interconnected with the beliefs, values, and ideologies associated with race, racism, colorism, and Korean privilege. Koreanness creates a hierarchy that is based on a triracial system utilizing skin color as a means of acceptance. Those who are purebred Korean are at the top. Those who are honorary Koreans, like East Asian immigrants, are placed in the middle, whereas darker skinned Korean and non Korean immigrants are at the bottom of the ladder. Colorism and classism is an important factor and correlates heavily to the idea of Koreanness and its levels of hierarchy. It is comprehended that individuals with lighter skin tones are more desirable and have higher social statuses in Korea. Furthermore, colorism is present in genders. Darker skin tone men were more accepted as their skin tone correlated to being hard workers and providers for the family, whereas the women were required to remain lighter skinned in order to establish desirable beauty, societal virtue, and purity. Colonialism, along with Western imperialism, enforces the ideology that individuals with lighter skin tones are desirable and in turn greatly accepted, encouraging othering, discrimination, and racial biases. There is also displays of Koreanness in the Korean entertainment industry. The majority of those cast in news channels, TV shows, music, and movies are those that fit the Korean purebred identity or those that are in the intermediate level of honorary Koreans. Not to ignore the fact that there has been an increasing representation of multiculturalism within the entertainment industry, it has remained limited and unequally balanced. Mixed culture families are shown in a popular Korean reality show called The Return of Superman. Here, fathers are left at home with their children without their wives for a period of time. As this TV show has shed light on interracial relationships, they have predominantly been between Caucasians and Koreans. This display of inclusivity deflects from the fact that interracial relationships can be between non-Caucasian people, excluding the notion that mixed-race Koreans can be of darker skin complexions. Rather, this sort of inclusivity in the media enforces a hierarchy and the privileges attributed to lighter skin-toned individuals. Many K-pop artists have spoken out about their personal experiences with racism, ranging from Korean artists that do not fit the Korean look, mixed-race Koreans, as well as foreigners. Somi, a Korean entertainer, expressed the name-calling she received, such as being labeled as a crossbreed, and feelings of being an outsider. Along with this, a British South Korean singer named Shannon expressed that she is oftentimes seen as a foreigner by Korean viewers. Shannon recalls the negative comments made about her and tries to defend her heritage by stating, "I have Korean blood in me." The need to maintain a Korean identity is made clear in Shannon's statement, where she enforced the fact that she has Korean blood in her and therefore she should be accepted unlike those who are not fully Korean. Alex Reid is an African-American K-pop star in the group BP Rania, and in a recent article she expressed her struggles that include miscommunication and cultural differences. Reid mentions that being the only African-American member has put her in an uncomfortable situation, such as being accused of skin bleaching and appropriating Korean culture in order to maintain her relevancy in the Korean entertainment industry. BP Rania not only consists of Reid, but also contains a Chinese member. With this, Reid has voiced her concerns with the mistreatment she faces and has sparked criticism for appearing in a traditional Korean hanbok required for a photo shoot, whereas accusations were not made against the Chinese member. The Chinese band member fits into the honorary Korean subgroup, therefore granting her privileges and a higher societal status versus a non-Korean other. Appropriation of the Black culture has also been a driving force in othering and racial bias. Elements contained in the urban African American sound and choreography have been appropriated in K-pop, where it's given a more tame and a bleached sound to be palatable to Korean audiences. Additionally, K-pop artists have appeared in dreadlocks and box braids, labeling it as fashionable and shaming Black individuals who sport the appearance as an expression of their culture. A K-pop group named Fly to the Sky is composed of solely Korean members, where in their song Everything, the N-word is used carelessly in attempts of enforcing its meaning when they are unable to do so in their native language, as well as coming off as cool and hip to the listening audience. It is often understood that Korean individuals who hybridize African American sound, culture, and style into their various forms of entertainment are doing so harmlessly and are appreciating, not appropriating. This is a racially insensitive view, where imitating one's culture without making the effort of understanding the negative connotations and implications associated with doing so is racially ignorant and is an evident form of appropriation. Thus far, some efforts have been made in K-pop as a means of enforcing the importance of not just inclusivity but overall diversity. The K-pop seven-member boy band BTS recently delivered a powerful speech on the matter of acceptance and inclusivity at the United Nations 73rd General Assembly in early 2018 that focused on quality education, training, and employment geared towards the youth. During the speech, band member RM advocated their fan bases to take a stand in social causes. BTS's success has granted them with a platform to display their allyship for non-Koreans and the social issues they experience, while also catering to their fan base ARMY, which is very multicultural itself. The large following of black K-pop fans in the US has allowed for an easier transition towards the political activism of K-pop stars. To be clear, it is oftentimes the fan bases in K-pop that are the ones that drive the political movement and not the K-pop artists themselves, for fear of backlash. Recent exceptions include BTS that have spoken out on current matters like the Black Lives Matter movement by donating $1 million, to which 34,000 members of the ARMY matched the same $1 million in less than 24 hours. The K-pop fan base in the Western societies are young, mostly female, and diverse, which is the demographic needed to change the future and enforce activism from K-pop bands and artists. Unfortunately, the awareness and overall acceptance of multiculturalism of non-Koreans is lagging behind in the public, societal, and educational settings. A next step would include teacher education programs allowing teachers to be educated on the matters of multiculturalism. This can promote awareness through proactively teaching their students about the importance of inclusion, diversity, and acceptance that in turn can be expressed beyond the classrooms. The lack of diversity and negative portrayal of non-Koreans in television and in the entertainment industry has sparked a desire for change. A Korean talk show, Bio Sanghaodem, has implemented a diverse cast with young men from around the world where issues are discussed in the Korean language. Additionally, Korea has begun to implement curricular reforms along with the Multicultural Family Support Initiative and support centers as the next steps to promote diversity in the education sector and beyond. Hypervigilance of microaggressions present within one's own culture, as well as the awareness of their own privileges in society, is imperative in halting the promotion of prejudices and continued oppression evident in the Korean culture as well as westernized societies. In order to have successful diversity and inclusion initiatives, structural inequality, fluidity and intersectionality, whiteness and racialization, multi-level approaches, along with mobile subjectivities, are models that are imperative to work on to encourage conversations surrounding racism in the entertainment industry. These models provide the necessary clarity when it comes to educating individuals on the topic of race and how marginalized and minority communities experience levels of racism differently. These models are important to implement, as doing so can avoid racial insensitivity in the workplace, the educational system, as well as the media and entertainment industries. Involving the perspectives of all groups, pushing key stakeholders, entertainment producers, and managers to think outside the box when casting individuals in musical groups, television shows, or movies is key. Along with this, designing initiatives that promote diversity in the entertainment industry can not only gain a new fan base, but can educate the consumers that may not be familiar with their own privileges in society and how it can affect others that do not look like them. Lastly, these concepts cannot exist in isolation and must be applied in every meeting, new project, or change management initiative. This segment is imperative. Enforcing diversity and inclusion initiatives in the entertainment field needs to be encouraged by many in order for it to remain successful while eliminating the racial barriers that are commonly faced today. All things considered, this topic was chosen to delve deeper into the inclusion and lack of representation of non-Koreans in the industry of K-pop, to encourage conversations surrounding inclusion in the Korean media, the entertainment industries, as well as the education sectors worldwide. Being a Black person of color myself, I'm always interested in learning about other cultures, as well as observing how these other cultures aim to provide inclusion and grow with the continued rapid globalization. Thank you for listening and watching this presentation.